wake up in the morning.
Walk in the streets and talk.
Check. What's up? Yo, what's up, y'all? Hopefully you guys could hear me and see if this is all working. Beehive Music, Anthony Zamoto, what's up? Welcome back, boys. Oh, hopefully everybody's having a good week so far, getting those Monday blues out. Let's see. Juanton Soup for the Producer, episode 2. What is up, y'all? I'm back. I'm excited. After chatting with you guys last week, I thought I'd talk about how I work on my basses, how I get them fat and taking up all that headroom down there without overpowering the mix, which can be tricky at times. Think I'm also gonna work a little bit on the percussion of this track, as well as some arrangement issues that I think I've been having. With this one, I've actually been working on this for a little too long, to be honest. So getting back to this track, see if we could finish it up. Then I was thinking towards the end of the stream that we'd open it up for questions, and I might even do track feedback for some of you guys. So please send your tracks to Juan at juantonmusic.com, and I'll make sure to do a feedback there at the end of the stream. So before we hop into it, a little bit of news. Got a YouTube video coming this week. Finally, been working on this guy, trying to learn how to edit videos is a whole nother beast. Also, please sign up for my newsletter, brand new newsletter I'm starting, juantonmusic.com/Twitch. Just drop your email and your name in there, and I'll be hitting you guys with some free downloads in the coming weeks and give you the lowdown on what's coming for Juanton Music in the future. All right, cool. So anyways, don't forget in the chat to let me know what you guys want to see in future streams as we're going along. Make sure to ask questions, and as always, be kind to others, please. Before we get started, let me just grab a beer really quick, and we can cheers before the stream. All right, I'm back. Let's see. Somebody asked where we send the streams to. Yeah, send it to Juan at juantonmusic.com. It says here in this other view. It says there at the top. And this week we are drinking Hazy Little Thing from Sierra Nevada. Great little beer if you're a hazy drinker. So cheers. All right, so dive into it. This is a track I've been working on for a while. I'm just going to give you a little preview starting here at the breakdown. So digging the direction of this track, I think it needs a new vocal. So I might have to record a vocal this coming week for it. Maybe you guys give me some ideas in the comments, some funny ass vocals for this one. I like vocals about butts. That's pretty common theme there in my tracks. So let me know. Yeah, SoundCloud links are perfect for feedback too. SoundCloud is the best actually. Don't send me your WAV file, man. I'm not gonna download no attachments. All right. So bass. Step one to getting the bass right is getting your reference right. So I talked a little bit about references last week. So I think that having a reference track is really important, just so that you're getting your mix right from the get-go. You're setting your levels with some bit of idea of where they're supposed to be. So it's like, it's hard to know how loud your clap's supposed to be if you have no idea, right? Because in your room, it might sound good. In your headphones, it might sound good, but that doesn't mean it's going to sound good in the club. So by using a reference track, we can see what they're doing. And even if we're in a bad room, we can compensate for that. Because if my kick is hitting a lot like their kick and my kick sounds the same as their kick in my room, in my headphones, then I have a pretty good idea that it's going to sound like theirs in the club, right? And that's the problem that we're trying to solve. So here, my reference track, I got Kyle Zuck in the rave, really dope track. Kyle Zuck's dope producer, and he's got a nasty little 808 bass in this. So let's listen to it really quick.
I be in the rave, know what I know. Know what I know. I be in the rave.
So in the ballpark of my track, a little different. He doesn't have any toms in there, which I wish I had some toms in there to reference, but his low end is a lot like my low end. It's really deep 808 subby thing, right? So first, to show you kind of how I set this up. So I have this ref group. I actually have like this tech house template that I use over and over. It has a lot of these things like this sidechain click tracks. I think I showed you guys how to do that last week. This is already done when I open up my projects. I have a low end chain, which I'm actually moving away from. I'm actually starting to put my kick with my drums so that they get the same compression. And then I keep my bass separate. Whereas before I used to actually do my kick and my bass together in the low end chain. And then finally I put everything through a master chain, and that just makes it easy because I can have my limiter on my master chain as well as anything that I'm actually going to use to process my track. And then on my own master channel, it's only analysis tools. So the reason I do that is that I can look at what's happening with my reference track, not going through any processing, and then turn around and look at my track in comparison with all the limiters and master track and whatnot on it. So the way that I do that essentially is I have this master chain. It takes in, and then everything else in here besides the ref gets sent to the master chain. So all my groups are going to the master chain, and if something's not in a group, it'll go there directly, or it'll go to the low end, and then low end goes to master chain. Finally, the ref itself. So you can see this, instead of going to master chain, just goes to master. And then I have my reference go to the ref group, where I have this solo right here. If you do edit key map, I have it with capital R for the solo button. So you can set that to capital R, hit escape, and now when I hit Shift R, it's gonna show me my ref and show me my track so that I can quickly A/B. So that's important. Also, when you bring your track in and you set it in here, right? You're gonna first want to make sure that it's warped to the BPM of your choice. So I think this track was at 126 BPM, right? So I clicked warp. I dropped it down to 126 so that it was at my 124 that's set inside of Ableton. And then finally, mentioned this last week. You set it to repitch because repitch will preserve the quality of the sample. It's not going to try to fill in or create its own slices of audio in order to warp. So what that means is that you're actually going to have a up and a down in pitch, but that's okay because that's such a small change, 126 to 124. It's barely noticeable. You're not going to notice that the key of the track is changing really or anything like that. Let's get this nasty glare. Cool. So once you got your ref set up, then we can reference here. Shift R.
Know what I know. One. I be in the way.
So yeah, you can definitely hear in his track that the high end is a lot better than in mine right now. But we're really looking at the bass. So if we look at my master, what I like to do here is I'll have this LFO tool. And LFO tool, what you can do is set the shape of your thing here to flat 100. Just puts it at the top, and then you actually bring the depth all the way down. So basically nothing's happening with this LFO tool. The only reason that I'm going through here is so that I can have my waveform on, and then I can look at that wave. So here's Kyle Zuck's track. You can see his kick. It's just ridiculously fat. And if you take this phase knob and move it around, you can get the kick sitting right where you want it.
I be in the way.
Cool, so now the kick's sitting at the front, and then mine you can see. So you see my kick versus his kick, and just look at the head space that he's taken up. Just ridiculously fat kick. Whereas mine, not so much, right? So he's really limiting it. He's pushing it. So we can see if we can kind of duplicate that same thing. So I use LFO tool. I use my trusty spectrum analyzer, right?
I be in the way.
So you can see mine versus his. I got this really big peak here from my kick. So does he. They're actually not too different, but then he has these upper harmonics up here that are really bumping it in like -8 range, and I don't have it. Might just be that my bass is a little bit lower in the spectrum, so we'll make sure to take a look at that. So before we do that, the last thing that I want to show you guys is these, which are just really simple EQs that I have, also mapped to Shift L and Shift H for my highs and my lows. And this just allows me to reference specifically one frequency range. So in my case, I really want to listen to the low end. And now I can really pinpoint that low end, right? If I bring up my LFO tool again, now I can look at just my kick and my bass, and then Kyle Zuck's kick and bass. So now if I see that his bass, the bass itself, not the kick, is hitting like right here. And mine's actually not too off, right? The bass is there. It's just not as sustained. So maybe that's where I need to improve on mine. Whoops, make sure you don't do that. If the depth is 0, it should be okay. Cool, so we got our references out of the way. All right, let's get into this. Gotta get this light out of my eye. Whew, okay, way better. Is it possible to zoom in on the spectrum analyzer? Yes, it is. Um, so with your spectrum analyzer here, you can set the range of like what you want the top to be and what you want the bottom. So you set your range to like 0, maybe like minus 80. That gives you like the full view. But if you to shrink this down, you can get like a more fine point view of a specific like peak. And the other way to do that is you just hover over here until you see this magnifying glass, and then click and drag right and left. Although to be honest, it's pretty finicky. Like I have trouble sometimes with this, so it's easier to just come in here. And if you hold shift too, if you don't know, anytime you're adjusting any parameter, if you hold shift, it'll go in finer tunes. So you can do minus 20, minus 16. Allows you to really zoom in there, look at the peaks. This is also a great way to tune your drums. When you're looking for, oh, what key is this in? Just get really nice and tight in here. Look at this peak. Okay, tell you right now, my kick's in F sharp. If I do my bass, so then my bass is hitting at G, F sharp and G. Maybe it's G sharp. Cool. So let's go see if I was right. Is that my 808? Okay, so this is a little different. So just to show you guys what I'm working here with, if you don't know, Roland makes their own cloud subscription, and it just has, you just get subscription to a bunch of VSTs, recreations of their flagship products. In my case, I really wanted to use the TR-808, very famous drum machine. You've heard it in 1.5 million songs. Let's see if I can make this bigger. Options, zoom. A little bit better. So yeah, this allows you to set the level specifically of the bass drum, the snare. You can choose between conga, low tom, mid tom, high tom, get your claves, whatever it is. So this is just a perfect recreation of that piece of equipment. And I actually have these presets as well that just kind of set it in a decent place for me. You can use volume to do the volume of the entire 808 kit. But what I have here is I've basically done the 808 kit with only the bass drum, and I think the toms, the low and the mid tom. So if we listen to it. Looks like there's a little cowbell sitting in there too, which I thought I kept the cowbell in its own group. So it might be in here too. I might have to remove that. But I just like to keep them in their own track so that I can process the 808 and the toms themselves. So I'll typically pull that cowbell out, just record it with the other tracks muted, and then pull it out of the MIDI. But for now, it's fine. We'll do that in a little bit. So just showing you, I'm using this 808. And with my kick. So there's our kick. Let's go take a look at this guy. It's hitting just over -6, kind of where I like it. Here specifically in this range. So one thing to remember with the kick is just because it's hitting at -6 here doesn't mean that it's filling the whole spectrum. Maybe you want like a really clicky part of your kick, and that's going to be higher, you know, anywhere from 500 to 3K for that punchy part. And sometimes I even layer like a hi-hat at the top, so you get like a nice little top piece to it as well. So yeah, frequency spectrums look good for looking at it in all those ways. And if I look at it in my LFO tool, there's my kick, right? And there's his kick. You can see it. That's just a click. So It's hard to tell if the bass is coming specifically from his kick or if he just has a really big 808 drum as well playing at the same time.
I be in the race, know what I know.
I think he might just have a huge kick.
I be in the race.
Whereas the sub for mine comes mostly from the 808 sub, and then I'm using just a punchier kick instead to kind of hit in between. So, well, let's get into this here. So I have the 808. It comes in really low, so I just threw up some gain on there. Looks like I have R bass running. Let's see, just a little bit at 80. I've recently started doing R bass differently, so I'll see if I'll probably show you guys how I'm using that now. I got Fab Filter Pro Q3. It's literally doing nothing. I just had it there because I love Pro Q3. And then my Synoxis Free G stereo, just to make sure I'm doing things right. So literally doing nothing so far on this bass. So let's see what we can get going. First things first is getting your levels right. I think you saw my levels weren't too bad. Let me just double check that my 808's sitting in an okay place. In fact, I'm actually just going to go ahead and extract the 808 itself, the 808 bass from the 808 toms and cowbell. So the way I'm going to do that, just duplicated the track, Command D, turn this one off for a little bit. Now we're listening to this guy. We're going to go open up the 808. And if you go to edit, you can see down here what it's playing. I think you can mute the tracks here specifically. So here I want to mute the bass. So it's not doing that. The reason why is because the 808 drum will actually play by itself when you press start and stop. But you actually come in here and do not panel. Position lock to DAW, and that will make it play the MIDI. So if you're ever wondering why the heck it's just playing over and over, you gotta do position lock to DAW. So now it reads my MIDI. So I can come in here. Just delete all these. So it looks like here I had no bass anyway. This is just the bass and those low toms. Cool. And as you can see here in my MIDI, I have designated A or bass and low, just so that I know that this MIDI is the same as this MIDI. So like right now, I just changed this one. I can duplicate this over, knowing really well that I know that they were the same MIDI already. Whereas like if I was to just duplicate it right over, then I'd be putting bass right here in this no bass section, which I don't want to do. So no bass section, we don't even need him. Okay, bass and low, I can just copy from over here. Cool. Organization is the key, guys. So this is 808 sub, and then I'm gonna do 808 toms and cowbell, I suppose. So the next thing to do is come in here and just do the opposite. You could take out all of these subs, or another way to do it just for fun is to come into our 808. I can switch the panel. So now my bass drum is here and I could just turn the gain all the way down. So there you go, it's gone. This sounds like it has a little bit of like reverb on it. I wonder if that's coming from the 808. Is there an effects panel? Yeah, not really sure where that's coming from. Oh, it's because we're master chain, maybe. 0, 0. Hmm. None of my returns. Anyway, see if we can get this going here. So now that I got my sub separate, I'm just going to start processing this guy separately. So this is with the R bass. Oh yeah, without it. Oh, that's without the utility. So just adding a little upper harmonics. And that actually doesn't sound bad. But just for the sake, I'm going to try doing this other method that I've recently been doing. So what you can do is click on your R bass, Command G. And now with our R bass, I've made a parallel chain. One is going to be dry, and one is going to be R bass. And the reason that I want to do this is so that the low end, the 60 hertz signal, will be perfectly untouched, go right through to the end of the chain. But I'm going to make like a top layer on top of that. It's really buzzy. See if that sounds good with the R bass. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. What I do like to do is look at my frequency chart. Frequency. So I want to say this is hitting G sharp. So if it's in G sharp, we would do either 51.9 hertz, or we can go to the next one, G sharp 2, which is double that, 103.82. So if I go back to my R bass, what did I say? 108, 103.8. 183.8. 103. Cool. And I'm just going to high pass this, see how this sounds at like 90. There's still my original. Maybe stick an EQ on here and see how that sounds. All right, and I will just flip this around. So just a little more upper harmonics. Let's take a look at that in the frequency spectrum. When I'm working on the same track, I like to just bring a spectrum in here so that I can play with the plugins. That's with it. Yeah, so just look at these harmonics right here. I mean, we're peaking up around minus 22. Turn them on. And now that same harmonic's peaking up at minus 16. So that gives us a little more. That's going to give us the laptop speakers or like AirPods. They're still going to be able to hear something. That's really what we're going for here, as compared to my original. pretty close in this case. So sometimes you get mixed signals. Sometimes it's just easier to put it directly on. Sometimes it's nice to do it the parallel way. I'm pretty sure that this is just playing the same note over and over. So the melody of the bass is coming from the toms, right? But if I was doing like multiple notes, then some people like to automate the frequency on this. So if it's a G, it's here. If it's A, then it's going to automate up with it. And that keeps your upper harmonics like staying consistent across. Another thing that we can do, I don't know that we'll need it, but I'm just going to take a quick look at Bass Rider. Bass Rider is a Waves plugin. Let's see here, plugins, bass. Waves, Bass Rider. Stereo's fine. Put that at the beginning of my chain. And Bass Rider is just going to keep the bass levels equal, so they're not like jumping all over the place. But I'm pretty sure with the 808 they'll be okay because it's a VST. But just in case, to show you this load, we can do gentle rider. So it's just the same as like literally somebody sitting on the fader back in a mixing console and just moving the fader ever so slightly to keep the level of the bass consistent. And that's important because if there's a big difference between the peaks of your bass notes, then one note might really impact the limiter and cause the limiter to clamp down harder on your entire mix at that one point, right? Just because of that note. So even though the note's louder, your whole song sounds quieter. Why is that, right? It's because your peak is hitting that limiter. So you really got to control the peaks, especially on the low end, because they're the most responsible for what's the word I'm looking for? Triggering the limiter. So I'm going to put Gentle Rider on here, and you can see those tiny little movements. So not doing too much here, but if you're using samples, note samples, definitely play around with Bass Rider, which is a really cheap plugin from Waves, I believe. Cool. So got Bass Rider going into my R bass. Another one that I like to use is Decapitator from Sound Toys. This one could be hit or miss depending on the style of your bass. So the only way to really know is to just stick it on there, play with the presets, see what you can find. A little trick I learned from the homie Riffa, you can actually do 2 of these in a row. Why not? It's like anything else. Maybe instead of going super hard on it, take it back a little bit, run the same twice, and sometimes that'll just get the bass sitting a little warmer, just a little bit. These are modeled after analog plugins, so maybe that has something to do with it. You know, it's just adding a little bit of like white noise hum and whatnot. Okay, so let's take a look here. There it goes. Okay, so go bass. I really like mid driver. See if that works. Really disgusting there. But we can mess with the dry wet. And I'm going to move my Synoxis to the end of the chain because now that I am messing with the gain a little bit, I want to make sure that we're hitting the same peaks. It's like 0.4. And then with Decapitator, minus 0.4. So it's actually down a little bit. Turn the output up. And I should really be working with the kick. So what I could even do here is maybe put this back into my where is it? That audio rack that had the R bass in it. Maybe try putting it just on the top end. So let me just listen to it with and without. I don't know if I need the decapitator. Actually does bring it out a bit. Back in the mix. So really, I think I need a little more tail on this bass. So I'm going to see if I could play around with the decay here. Just the low end. I just like to look at my LFO at the same time. So that's definitely too long. I think right there's a sweet spot. Okay, so I think that's really thumping. It might just be my headphones. Let me make sure I don't have SonarWorks running. Yeah, so I have SonarWorks here at the end of the chain. You can't really see it, so I'll just move it over really quick. SonarWorks, if you don't know, is a cool plugin that has calibration profiles for different headphones that will help you get a flat curve. So you can see right here with my V Modas that I'm wearing right now. They're really not great for mixing, honestly, but I can't use my monitors because of feedback. So I'm using these, and you can see that they have a big bump right here in the low end as well as these over here. So what this does is add a opposite curve that will flatten it so that when you see the simulated after, that should be my curve, right? After I use SonarWorks. But don't want to use it right now because then that will make your guys' audio kind of weird. So gotta leave him off. Make sure we're not getting any weird artifacts because of SonarWorks. Check it out though, great plugin. $100, 200. You can get the studio version. Comes with a little mic. Maybe it's 269, something like that. Anyway, so back to our sub here. One more thing I like to do just to add a little bit of harmonics at the top. I think we're sitting all right as of right now, and the main reason is just starting with a good source. You know, the 808 is a great, really renowned sound, and using it straight out of the plugin has been a bit of a cheat code for me. Just helps me get that bass right off the bat. And actually, what's most important to me is the shuffle. You can just add shuffle to it, and it's such a classic shuffle, and it's so easy to get a good shuffle on it, um, which is really hard to get out of when you're working with just like straight audio notes and MIDI. Especially as if you're beginning, you're not going to know how to come in here and do tiny little intricate changes to your velocity in order to get like a nice groove. So having that in the 808 is actually like a big help for me. But if you were not using that, then maybe there are a few more techniques you could use here. One of them would be using Saturn, FabFilter Saturn, or really any saturation plugin. But Saturn is really nice because it gives you multi-band saturation. So I really just like to use presets here, kind of go through some of the basic saturation presets and see what sounds good or what's adding good harmonics to my bass. Or if you're really trying to have fun and geek out on this, then you can actually come in here and create different frequency crossovers, decide what the levels are specifically. You can even put different types of saturation on different parts of the frequency. So you can have like a smooth amp here, and then this guy can be warm tube, something like that. But for our case, I'm just going to go ahead and hit up some saturation. So once again, we got to move our Synoxis plugin to the end of Saturn so that we can see the before and after effect of the plugin on our gain. Proper gain staging is key. Get a view here. Okay, so without Saturn, oh, we already got it. We're at minus 0.12. Okay, and then with the Saturn on, we're actually quieter, see, but we've added some harmonics up here. Total aside here, this is like one of the keys to making great music, man, is happy accidents. And you know, something like that, maybe this isn't the greatest example, but just goes to show like you'll be doing one thing and sometimes you'll just hear something else that's you weren't really aiming for. Is, you know, maybe you clicked the wrong button, you just brought up a preset and you hear something great come out of it. Like, run with that. When that happens, just run with it. Resample it. If you're like in the middle of a process, just duplicate the track and turn it off and come back to that in a little bit, because man, some of the best tracks I've made have just been a bunch of happy accidents, resampling them, using that as another part, another flavor of the track, or a cool sound effect, or noise candy is what I like to call them. So yeah, happy accidents. That was kind of cool. Anyway. So weird. Okay, so we're getting into sequencing. Let me just come all around saturation, big bass beat. the bass by itself really quick. Night Vision, thanks for the follow. Shout out my guy. Another follower, Calipigian Music. I don't know how to say that, brother. My bad. Shout out, though. Thanks for the follow. I don't know. You guys hear anything there? It's so subtle. I feel like it's just a little bump in the upper harmonics. I'm going to move this crossover to like 100 so the 60 is really hitting good. So I'm going to move over the 100 range. See, and you can actually use Saturn to, if I turn this drive all the way down here, I'm basically turning off the saturation in this frequency right here. So you can actually just use this as a level. So if you ever have like a sound, you just want to increase it, boom, right there. And it's a little different than EQ, right? Because EQ is going to be so fine grained. You could just basically do an EQ with the big curve, but you know, with this plugin, maybe there's some type of analog modeling going on. So it's just like an analog EQ essentially. So you can use that to do a little boost to certain spectrums. Cool. So then I'm actually going to add some drive here. Maybe do, guys, I promise I don't know what any of this is. Warm tube. I mean, tube compressors, I suppose. But there's just no way to know except to just listen to them. I think that actually sounds pretty good without it. And we actually are peaking 0.3 less because saturation is for the win. Great. Saved a little headroom, and it's pretty fat with the kick. Okay. So it sounds like my side chain's just going a little too hard. Whoopsie. Sidechain's going a little too hard. So I'm going to show you guys what I'm doing here. I have this sidechain rack where I use this one to get out of the way of the transient on the kick. And then I use this one to create a bit of a pumping effect. But it feels like it's pumping a little too hard. So I'm going to cut back on this a bit. Something like that. So that our bass comes back in. And potentially even try just using kickstart instead. I feel like that's just a little better already. It's just letting that decay breathe on the bass, and it's not really just choking it down like this other one is doing. So this might be better for more fine-tuned bass where I have a bigger kick. Whereas this one I think is doing a little better because I want a little bit more of a natural ducking without taking too much of the bass out. And there's even different chains here, so I'm just going to cycle through some of these and see if any of them really make the sub pop out. Maybe add my drums in too. Okay, so there we go. We got a nice little chain on our bass. I think it's sitting up good. We got a side chain on it, which is important to get out of the way of the kick. It's I kind of like want. I would like to spend a little more time there, talking about it because there's a little trick you can do with the LFO tool. This low end. Oh, it's not on. So when you're looking at your kick here, you can see if I do just the kick. Here's my kick, right? So then I turn on my bass. And there's really not any crazy thing happening to the kick. So you can see kind of like this small changing now that the bass is in here too, but the kick transient is still here. Whereas if I take off my kickstart, see how that transient is jumping up and down now? Because that bass is hitting with the kick at that same spot right there. So that right there will show you and kind of lead your ear to where you need to fix things. So just looking at this, oh man, look at my kick. This will happen a lot with the clap too. Sometimes a clap transient will cause too much of a dip on the limiter or compressor or something like that, and you'll see like this big drop up and down. And that big drop up and down on the kick transient is going to equate to kind of like not a solid foundation in your track, right? Because the kick is the foundation of our dance track, so we really want that kick coming through. So this LFO tool is a really good way to kind of see if there's any issues with that. It's kind of like a way of just looking at the waveform and making sure that you're taking up all that headspace. Speaking of, it doesn't look like my kick's taking up all the headspace, right? If we're looking at it, but we do know that that kick is hitting around -6 where we want it to. So the question is, like, why isn't it filling up the spectrum in the LFO? And my guess would be we need some upper harmonics on that kick. So just really basic kick here. But if I want to beef it up, maybe I can add a layer. Just gonna put these in a group, send this to my group, and then send the group to low end for now. Cool. And here I'm just going to just get a nice little top click, and what I like the 808 clicks. So I'm just gonna type 808 click. That one's not bad. Let's just stick it here and hear what it sounds like. So the click's all right. Actually, I think what I'm going to try to do is add just a little hat. Need my samples plugged in. Here we go. So working samples. Let's go play around with CDS. Let's see if he's got some hats. Noisy, I think, has some good ones. Drums. Let's go hi-hats. Maybe something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick it on here, come in. It's going to make this guy tiny. So we'd hit Z to zoom in. Get my fades. Maybe not that short. Okay, and I'm also going to just throw an EQ on there, and I'm just going to take out all this low end of this thing. Just leave just the top. All right. Duplicate this. X will zoom out, by the way. A little too much there, though. Okay, with this. So I'm not digging that one. Let's see if we can find a better sample. There's actually a better way to do this. So when I want to find a sample and I'm searching around, I know what I want, but not necessarily what sample. What I can do is create a MIDI track instead. Okay, so we got our MIDI track here. I'm going to go in here. We're going to go to C3 and do every quarter, right, for a kick. And I actually am going to put a drum rack here. Cool. So now I can look for hats again. Go to my working samples. Mark Knight's probably a good one. Single hits. Just get things that I think might be a good click, and I'm just going to drop them in here. I'm going to aim for like 10 to 15. What about a tambourine? Hmm. Hat again. Something like that. I kind of want something tingy. I don't know if tingy's a word. It's a word right now for me. That little clonk might be cool. Tool room. Okay, so let's go look at Vengeance Essential Tech House. Cymbals, closed hi-hats. Now we're talking. Something like that. Don't even know 100% what I'm looking for yet, right? Just listening for things that catch my ear. There's a good one. And just one more. Let's go down here. kind of like that. All right. So now that we got that, I got my drum rack. Go unfold it, click this, and just move it down one. And we can do fold again. Oh, unfold actually. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move up and down these and listen and see which ones maybe sit right with my ear. Probably listen to the whole low end. Make sure to loop this. Click that, Command L. Turn this off. That's what's creating that skip. And let's go get our EQ. Okay, so I think that one's pretty cool. I'm just gonna duplicate that and then mute this one. That one's not bad. Maybe that one. I kind of want to play with it a little bit, so let's try that one. By the way, if you probably can't see it right here, but what I'm doing to duplicate this pretty quickly is that I'm clicking here, which highlights the whole row, and then I'm holding Option on my Mac. It might be Alt on Windows, but hold Option, and then you need to drag it and let go. It's going to have duplicated rather than have moved it, right? So that's what I'm doing there. Also need to set this, to an arrow so that it will click in place. Cool. It's actually not bad there. And that's kind of the original sound I was going for. Not really digging any of those. Okay, cool. So now I can fold it. So I'm down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 samples. You can do this with any sample you're trying to find, especially when you're trying to make good drums. If you're using drums from all sorts of different kits, it's really difficult to find drums that really sound good together. So one way that we can bypass that is by doing this, dropping in a ton of claps, a ton of hi-hats, a ton of cowbells, and then just kind of cycling through, narrowing down your search, letting your ear listen to different combinations of the drums until you find the ones that start to work well together. If you're just kind of picking at random, dropping it into your drums and trying to see if it works, it's going to take a lot longer to find something good, and you might settle on something that maybe doesn't sound the best because you didn't hear any other options. Cool. So a little drum rack trick. All right, so let's pick one of these. And I should really do this with at least the drums as well. Okay, so I think this top one right here just sits the best. It really feels like it's part of the kick. And it's just adding a little, I think, to the drums as a whole. So I'm going to go with that one. Come in here. What I'd like to do, okay, so now I got this guy. Here's another trick. So Command-Shift-T. That's going to create a new MIDI track. Come in here, go find the one that's hitting. So here inside your drum rack, just drag it onto this channel and it brings all the MIDI with it. So if I had MIDI all the way across this track here and just pulled it down, all the MIDI would have been preserved. So it just creates a new drum rack with just that one item that you wanted. And you could even come right here and hit ungroup on the drum rack. So right click the drum rack, ungroup, and now I'm left with just my sampler with that sample. If you do this, make sure that you change this, because look, now it's sitting at what is that, A#1, just because that's where it was in the drum rack. The drum rack is just a piano roll at the end of the day. So I got to move this up to C3 so that it's hitting in its original note. Bring this volume with it, -8. Cool. And the last thing I want to do is just, I'm going to change this to a sampler, and I'm going to come into filter global, and I'm going to reduce the sustain all the way down. And the reason I'm going to do that is now my decay, I can just move my decay up and down, and you can see it here. I'm just going to be able to control the tail of this. So now it's just like a little tick with everything, right? So that just puts something in the high end hitting with my kick over and over and over. It's going to give me a little more spectrum. So now if I come back and look at my LFO tool, I wonder if that makes a difference. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Ah, look at this. Without it, it's not much, but it's something. I'm getting a little more headroom. I'm taking up a little bit more headroom with my kick. And in Tech House, you want your kick to take up the full headroom of the wave. So, okay, there we go. And look back at our reference. A little closer. And really, I think that our low end is close enough. I mean, his low end is just raging. Let's go look at the frequency spectrum for Kalzak. Dude, look at this. He's hitting -3 dBs with his kick. This thing is just ridiculous. And we're peaking around -8 with his little off bass notes. So very kick driven track. You know? But what's really impressive with his track is that he has this high end, all this top end stuff is super loud. And for it to be that loud while your kick is just eating up all the headroom is pretty impressive. So yeah, Kalzak, come share your tips with us, man. We'd love to have you on here. I actually think he's playing the Rooftop in San Francisco this Thursday, so make sure to check that out. Played the Rooftop a few weeks back, July 2nd, I think, and it was a lot of fun, really cool stream. Shout out Eric Pratt for putting that together. Anyway, so I think I got the bass somewhere I like it. I think I got a cool little top end on my kick. And I'm probably going to stop there, guys. I was going to work on my percussion. I need to figure out where the heck this weird reverb's coming from. I can definitely hear it here, especially on the cowbell. And I'm not really sure what's creating that, because I'm not sending this to any return channels. There's no reverb here. So I need to figure that out. Maybe I'm accidentally adding reverb on some of my master effects. So I'll take a look there. But regardless, we got what we wanted done, and that was fat bass. And I wanted to take some time to listen to some user tracks from the audience. So really quick here, let's transition. Cool. So Anthony Zamota says, would Def like to take a closer look at applying swing, groove, velocity tweaks to make interesting percussion in a future episode? Yeah, that's a good idea. I have some tips and tricks on that. That's something that I've really played with in the last year, trying to really nail, because percussion and groove is super important to the whole track. So yeah, maybe I'll put that in my notes for next week. Cool. All right. So let me just bring up SoundCloud, or my email rather. And looks, we got first one from Beehive. Let's open her up. Ah, look at this cute smile. All right, let me know what you guys think in the chat.
It's all about bullshit. It's all about. I don't got mainstreams. I'm not underground, all that other sugar coated and watered down. I mean, it's just, I'm tired of people getting record deals because of their image, because of what type of image they can sell, instead of what type of music they can sell. Because today's music is too over-commercialized. It's basically bubblegum bullshit, where it's not about true talent anymore. It's all about image. It's all about bullshit. It's all about image. Bubblegum bullshit. It's all about. I
Okay, Beehive and Del Rio, Knock Underground. Hats off to you, bro. That track's sick, man. I really love the idea. I love the warp D40 vocal. I could definitely hear that in there. Couple things for me. Let me see. So what I wrote down: bass is sick. Your bass is ripping, dude. You obviously don't need me to make thick bass. You got it going on. It sounds really good. I think that maybe it's just my ear or what I like to do, but I actually like to high pass the whole track in the breakdowns, or at least in like the 8 bars going into the drop, and kind of just close an auto filter on that over time, so that the bass is being taken away and then comes back in full blast. And it just helps some punch, because I just feel like there's too much low end. I mean, you're definitely taking some out, but I feel like you could take out a little bit more in some of these sections, like right before this drop. And then especially over here, you have this whole bass playing through.
It's all about bullshit. It's all about image. It's basically bubblegum bullshit.
So you have your kick high pass, but not the sub. It sounds like the sub's full there, which is fine. I would probably ride that for like half. If this is 4 phrases, I'd ride that bass until the halfway point, and then maybe put a full high pass or completely take it out altogether, so that when it comes back here, you get a lot of punch. So that's just one thing. I did like that you kept the bass here in this section, because for me, this is a really long breakdown, but you give me...
I mean, it's just...
You at least have the groove of the bass playing through here, and that's giving me something to dance to. So I would leave that groove playing for a good chunk of time, and then you could keep the groove with the high pass, or if the high pass isn't sounding too good, just take it out all the way. You have the snare roll coming in, and if you put a little more low end on the snare roll, that can kind of work in the place of the bass there. So that just helps bring it back in, and it's fresh again, and it punches me in the chest again. I forgot how good that bass felt, Cool. So then the only other thing that really caught my attention was this section right here. So when the second drop starts, it kind of feels like nothing new happens, but then you have something new happen over here. That feels like it's the climax of the track. And the issue for me is that from a DJ perspective, this is going to screw me over in a set. I'm going to be thinking, like, I'm going to start my second track coming in right here. And then as it progresses, you get to this second mini break, which you've already done a mini break over here. So you have this little mini break. And you build back up into the climax of the track. Whereas me and probably a lot of DJs, we're gonna be mixing out right here. So I'm like, oh, I'm mixing out your track, and then all of a sudden there's this mini break, and it redrops into the climax of the track, and I'm bringing a new track in. I'm gonna have some clashes, and if I wasn't expecting it, it could really throw off the energy of my set. And from a DJ perspective, I might play your track that one time and be like, "Oh no, this track is gonna screw me next time I play it." So I'd say switch this. Maybe put this section here right when the second drop starts, and then move this section over here so that it climaxes right at the beginning of the second drop, and then slowly fades down into finally our outro. And if you want to keep this mini break, I would just you can keep it there, kind of just swap the sections, or just nix it, man. I mean, you already have one over here. We've carried this bass along far enough. I mean, take out that section and let's get to the outro. You know, good track though. Digging it. That's just my 2 cents. Also, one last thing, I did feel like I've heard some frequency masking in the mid range with some of these really cool synths you got going.
Tired of people getting record deals.
Not sure where exactly I heard it, but maybe I'll give it a better listen and give you some time markers on where I'm hearing this. But just a little frequency masking. I would just pick which sound you want to be the lead, and then just put a side chain compressor on the other one, side chain to the first lead. And if you have multi-band, what is it, Pro MB from FabFilter, you can actually do a side chain in a specific frequency as well. So that will let you just kind of duck whatever frequency is getting masked when one is playing, so that the other kind of stays behind while they're working together. Just my 2 cents. Anyway, dope track. Keep it up. Beehive, if you don't know them, go follow. My boy's putting out hot music. All right, we got another track here from Anthony Zamota. My main man, been here since the beginning, episode 1. This is episode 2. Okay, let's see what we got. Just gonna skip a little ahead.
Something from them. See, cause it was at a time when they were taking instruments and shit out of schools and all of that type of shit. So they tried to take the music from us. You know what I mean? When we had created an original American music. So what did we do? We had no fucking instruments, no horn, no drum. We're living in the fucking city and all that. We ain't got room for that shit anyway up in projects, wherever the fucking you're huddled in at. So what do? We took the fucking record player, the only thing that's playing music in our fucking crib, and turned it into an instrument, which it wasn't supposed to be. Created an original American music. So what did we do? We had no fucking instruments, no horn, no drum. We're living in the fucking city and all that. We ain't got room for that shit anyway up in the projects, wherever the fucking your huddles in there. So what did we do? We took the fucking record player, the only thing that's playing music in our fucking crib, and turned it into an instrument, which it wasn't supposed to be.
Okay, dope track. Anthony Zamoto, shout out for that one. Looks like you're working on it with the homie Sasha. Dude, dope track. I really love the like old housey vibes. Like you really got the sound down. You got like a cool musical idea here. So I'm gonna jump in. I got a few notes for you. I'm gonna start with the kick. The kick is lacking punch, and it's lacking punch in the middle. It's hard to tell where the low end is. So either you have the kick just too quiet, and you can actually turn it up, which it's hard to tell just from the waves on SoundCloud. You never really know if this is actually taking up the full headroom or not. So it's either that the mid punch isn't there, or that you just need to turn the whole kick up. Or my guess is a combination of both. And the way that you can do that is that you can put just like a clicky sound. So like in this stream, I was looking for an 808 click, but look for a kick click sample, something that's kind of punchy. It's like, and you just put that like in with your kick. Make sure you put an EQ at the end of the chain so that you roll off any low end, because what we're really looking is for like the 250 or 500 to like 3000 hertz range to get some sound in there, some punch. So just put this click and have it hit in the same time as your kick. And then you can saturate the click until you start to get the punch that you're looking for. But that's what this track's kind of missing, is just that mean punch from the kick coming there. And it's not always the low end where that punch comes from. So that's one. Also, just some of the other drums, the clap was really quiet. Sounds like the clap is
An original.
You may even have a little too much low end cut on the clap, but you can bring that clap. I think just bring the volume up on it and potentially saturate the clap and then compress the drums together using the glue compressor. Look for like 2 to 3 decibels of gain reduction, and then make sure you do the makeup gain to compensate. But I think that will give you a little glue on your drums and help bring them up and give them some punch too. But what I'd really like to focus with you is your breakdown.
Created something from them. Take the music.
Let's see, it starts at 1 and your break starts at 2. So for 1 minute, there's no like rhythmical elements carrying me along. I need something. Like I don't need to have bass necessarily, but you either need to keep like the main drum loops. And for this style of track, what a lot of people like to do is like a cool high pass effect where you're kind of like putting a big filter on the drum, so you hear the drums kind of filtering down, but the groove element needs to stay in the track to keep me moving at least for 30 seconds into this drop. Otherwise, like I'm literally just standing there like, okay, this is sick, waiting. And when people start waiting, they start going to the bar. The bartenders will love you, but we want people to stick around. We want to keep them dancing, right? So here, so you have the kind of like syncopated claps, and it looks like some tops that are giving you some groove elements. Keep them in here. You're taking away the kick. Just keep those groove elements driving me through here.
Something
just underneath with that little filter trick. And then the other thing, I think that you're missing out on just like a building effect, like some reverb, some delays on the vocals. Just make me feel like I'm building up.
From when we had drum with live.
And one thing that could really work here, I think, is a snare roll. Just take a snare roll from a sample pack and just open up a high pass filter. Yeah, a high pass filter on it. No, a low pass filter, so that the filter's opening up over time, and you're with some type of rhythm, just something building up, because it's just lacking some
fucking city and all that.
Some drive. But the vocal's dope. I like the vocal, and to that point, I'd really like you to focus on this spot right here. I call it the pre-drop.
For that shit anyway, which it wasn't supposed to be.
Like right there, what if for a split second you just lose all audio except for the vocal, and then what does he say? So right there, which it wasn't supposed to be. And then you have the reverse cymbal, which is good, and that would suck you back into the drop, which it wasn't supposed to be. And we're back into the drop. And now you're hitting me with that funk again. I'm like, oh, let's go. So I think that work on that pre-drop spot, man. You can create a lot of tension and then a big release into your drop, and that's what you want. Another way to do that is to put a high pass filter this time on the master as a whole, slowly closing down, getting rid of more and more low end up to about maybe 250 hertz. And another trick you could even do is automate automate a utility on the master down 1 decibel over time, over the whole time of your break, just down 1 decibel, maybe even less, and then come back to full volume right when the kick comes in. And that's just going to give you even more, just another little punch to the listener, and that will really get you driving. Cool. Other than that, yeah, claps are quiet. Play with the vocals in the main break. The vocals are cool. See, here you kept the groove elements.
For that shit anyway.
Carries me through.
Projects, well, the fucking you're huddled in there.
I think that the vocals could use a little bit of compression or saturation to get a little bit more volume out of them, and then play around with like a building delay and reverb together during the break that just kind of makes it like airy and ethereal, just to give some interest to this vocal, which I've already heard in the track.
Which it was.
Oh, see, you have a snare roll there already. Just use that same snare roll, and I think you could actually be a little louder. Maybe saturate it too.
Supposed to be.
And do that same trick where you kind of empty out right here, and maybe like take. Let me see if I could show you in my track. So in mine, I went all the way to the top because that's just the style I was going for there. But I'm gonna show you on my master chain what I have. So this bass clefs easy filter um, is just, it's a free plugin. I'm pretty sure if you Google it, you can get it. If not, let me know and I'll get it for you guys. This one's more complex. This is the easy wash, but essentially what this does is it gives it's just a one knob plugin that's doing like it's pushing everything into this grain delay, reverb, and then it's using an EQ to take out the low end. And then I also have this filter, which is doing the same thing, except it's just high passing. So this is what I mean. If you look at the filter over time, it's going to high pass and let less and less out. So now if I redo my automation and show it on the master chain, like you can see here how they're both at 0. And when they're at 0, all the effects are off. And then here in the drop, you'll hear it. And then it comes back to completely dry, and coming back to dry is just like boom, punch you in the face. And here, in our headphones, it's one thing, but in the club, this is really gonna create like a huge contrast because you're gonna come back to just 60 hertz, thumping them in the chest. So yeah, this is like, I mean, it's so common, bro. I wish I could take credit for this, but this is like 90% of house tracks. This is what they're doing. So no reason to try to be super creative there. Just, follow the lead. Other than that, really good track, man. I think the biggest thing is just your levels. I think you can actually make things a lot louder than you are. If you aren't mixing into a limiter, I would just put a limiter on your master chain, set it to 0, and mix everything to 0. Your limiter will get engaged the whole time, but that's okay because you're mixing into the limiter. It's actually going to highlight issues with your mix that a mastering engineer would hear down the road. So it's a good way to do it, and I'll talk about that next week. How I work on my levels and how I set myself up in Ableton to mix to 0. So I'll explain that a little bit next week. One last thing, I noticed some sounds sound like they have too much low end, and I think that's taking away space from your bass line. Like your bass could be hitting harder at the volume it is if some other things didn't have as much low end. So if something's not a bass, a kick, or like a tom, you could probably high cut it up to like 150, sometimes 250. I like to take just a filter and high pass it as high as I can before I hear anything happening, and then maybe go back a tiny bit. And depending on some sounds, you can actually take out some of it because you want to remove the weight from those to make room for the weight of your bass line. But yeah, anyways, man, I think that's some decent feedback. Dope track though. I really like the vibe, the style. Keep working on music, man. I know you're gonna be making some dope tracks here pretty soon. Feel free to send me this back if you want some more feedback too during the week. I'll do my best to get back to you. Email. Just give me a couple of days to give it a listen. Other than that, man, that's it. I hope you guys got something out of this. I hope I did a good job explaining myself, trying to get better and better at this every week. Please, if you haven't yet, hit follow on Twitch or go to my YouTube and hit subscribe, preferably both. And please go to, what is it? JuantonMusic.com/Twitch and hook me up with your email so that I could be up in your inbox, sharing tips and tricks with you, sharing exclusive downloads from Juanton himself, including some production racks that I'm trying to figure out how to save and share with you guys. So anyways, that's it for me, guys. I'm signing off. Till next time, stay hungry, keep producing, be good to people. Have a good week. Peace.